Hi, my name is Barbara Kavadias. I'm the coordinator for the Morristown group of the Community Share Garden at Genesis Farm. We're in the middle of our second share week, and I want to talk to you about two vegetables that seem to have some people stumped. They get them confused, they don't know what they are, they don't know what to do with it. It's like some mystery vegetables that we've come, if you're a longtime member of the farm or you've been used to getting vegetables from the farm for a while, you may really love. But if you're new, this may be something new for you. First, the two I'm going to talk about is green garlic, and the other is in this bag, and that is bok choy. So first let's talk about the green garlic. It essentially looks like a really nice green onion. So how do you know it's not a green onion? You know partly because the leaves are flat, right? You also know, because if you smell it, it'll smell a little bit of garlic. And that's the two best ways to tell. Usually also, if it's a green onion, if it's a scallion or even a leek, the leaves are going to be rounded and hollow, right? So whereas these are very flat and not hollow at all. So I've had this green onion in the refrigerator for a week, and it's starting to dry out a little bit, but I don't eat as much of the leaves anyhow when it gets to be this mature. The parts that you're really going to want to eat really are as much as the stem is still solid, right? Like here it's white, and that's very good to eat. Here it's green, but it's still good to eat. And you can't quite see it, but you can feel it. The stem, while it stays solid, it's still very yummy. So I'll show you how to cut that in a minute. The other vegetable we're going to talk about is bok choy. And bok choy, I've had it in this bag that I wet. Sometimes I put them in a plastic bag, sometimes I don't, if I remember to wet it. But you can see it's been in the refrigerator for over a week. It's still beautiful condition. When we got the bok, so there's baby bok choy. This is a little bit past the baby bok choy stage, right? Because some baby bok choys, you can just put the whole thing into your cooking. Or salads, they can be very small. This is a little more mature. It's got a little bit of a bulb. You'll also see there's some little holes on these leaves. Doesn't hurt you. There's no bugs in here. It's usually beetles that take a little bite of this, and then they say, oh, I don't really want it. It actually, the plant responds to getting these little bites, and it builds up more antibodies, I guess, or antioxidants, something. It builds up some resistance to really try to tell the beetles that this is not a good food for them. So it's rare that you'll see any insects inside of here, but we're going to talk about how to cut it to make sure that you don't have bugs in there. But it's perfectly safe to eat these leaves. This plant is, I think, in the same family as cabbage, so it has a mild but earthy taste. You may be familiar with it from Chinese cooking, but there's lots of different things you can do with it. So those are the two vegetables. So let's talk about how to cut them and clean them and things like that. So I'm going to bring this down, so hopefully you can see the cutting board. Try to put this at an angle. You can see the cutting board. Yes. So let's go back to the garlic. So the garlic, you can see, has a little bit of the root end here, and you can maybe see there's a little bit of remaining, and it's a little drier, a little tougher on the outside. So what I usually do is I cut the end off, put it in the compost, and then I peel off any end like that. Green garlic tends to be pretty clean at this point, not like leeks, which you have to cut in half and then fan them and wash them out. The green garlic isn't quite like that. So you take your knife and you just, keeping the tip on the cutting board, you just slice along, keeping an eye on it in case you see if there's any dirt inside of it. You can eat the green garlic in a salad. You can put it in stir fry. You can, now, I'm getting to the end, and you see where this leaf end is starting to come, this leaf is coming to an end, and behind it, it's still solid. At this point, especially when it's starting to get a little bit dry like this, I would just peel that off, right, and put that in the compost, and then look and see if there's a little bit of dirt, and there is, because right in that point, there might be a little dirt. So I'll just go and rinse it off. And you can keep cutting till you get to the end of the next root end. And there's less likely to be dirt, but it's still possible. And again, I'm going to rip it off, and there's just it's not really dirt, it's a little bit of straw. And I'll keep cutting. You can see these are green, but they're still quite edible and tasty. And the leaves, if they look tender, I'll cut a little bit further up, but if they start to look tough, you can hear they're a little tough as I cut down, so I won't use those ends once it gets to be like that. When I first got it from the farm last week, those leaves were a little less tough, and I would have been more likely to use them, especially if I was cooking. If I was having them raw in a salad, I'd be less likely to have this just totally green part that doesn't have any solid bit like this. If it's just open leaf, I'm a little bit less likely to eat it if I'm doing it raw. If I'm cooking, I can cut it because it'll get tenderized and that'll work. So you can also, if you want to make an early pesto, very fresh tasting pesto, you can take your green garlic and put it in the food processor along with your herbs, whether it's basil. You may not have basil too far along yet, but you can use other herbs that are in your garden that are perennial and they're coming back up. So for example, I have a lot of oregano. So I'll often I can make a fresh pesto by taking this very nice young green garlic and putting it in the food processor along with some nuts and the oregano. Essentially, anything you use green onions with, you can use the green garlic. I wouldn't waste it in a soup though. It's gonna lose. You're gonna miss out some of that. It's a very mild garlic taste. So if you put it in soup, you're gonna miss out. Okay, so that's the green garlic. So here is my bok choy. And really it has two different parts that you're going to be able to eat on this. There's the stem, which is a little bit of a texture similar to celery, and then you've got the leaves. Now some people do eat the leaves in their salad. I find them a little tough, but if you cut them really fine, you can put them in a salad. I wouldn't have big pieces in a salad. But the stems you could put in a salad. I love this in stir fry. I think it's excellent. You can also fry it up to when you're making eggs. You could roast them a little bit in the oven with olive oil and maybe a little garlic on there. If you do that, you just have to do it. You don't want to roast it so much that the leaves are dried out or that the stem gets tough. So you kind of have to find that sweet spot. When they're smaller, you can just quarter them and put them in your stir fries. But when they get to be this big, I think you're better off slicing them. So I usually cut the end off first. Right? See this kind of rosette piece? I cut that off because I like to go and wash it. Because if you can see at the base here, because of the way it grows, it's a little bit dirty, right? You don't want to get that in your food. So I separate it, I pull the leaves off. And I'm just going to keep pulling the leaves off. This doesn't have much of a stem left, but that stem that is there is edible, right? After you've taken the leaves off. You're just taking them off so you can wash them. You could just leave this whole like this and cook it. It's probably tender at the middle like this. You can just eat it. But you can see there's a little bit of dirt and things inside of there. Can you see? Is it too bright? I don't know if you can see, there's a little dirt. So this definitely needs to be washed. So I'm going to go to the sink. I'll be right back. I like to wash each week one at a time. I can make sure I get all of the dirt out. It also gives me a chance to inspect for any bugs. Not that I really expect any, but when you have such a protected spot like that, you can imagine how a bug might hide in there. So you just want to carefully wash it. So I keep kosher. Some people think, oh, bugs are extra protein. If you keep kosher, you don't want any bugs or bug parts in your food. So I'm just going to wash each leaf. Okay. So I had that bag that I was keeping my bok choy fresh in. I can just put the colander right on there. So essentially when you cut them, you're going to want a different cutting technique for the leaves and for the stem, especially when they get to be this developed. So I'm going to, again, keeping the front of my knife right on the cutting board, I'm going to first do the stems. I'm just going to put right in here. And I'm actually going to cut the leaves all at one time. So I'm actually going to make eggs for dinner tonight. So I'm going to use my bok choy, and I'll cook the stems at the same time that I put in the green garlic, and it'll make a nice flavor together. And they'll cook at about the same rate. So I'm trying to make the stems as I cut them to be about the same size or a little bit bigger than what the slices were of the green garlic, because I want them to kind of cook at the same rate. I want to cook that garlic to bring out some of the flavor and mix it together with the stems. And I'm keeping the leaves separate from the stems, partly because I want to cook them at a different time, right? I don't want to cook the leaves as long as I cook the stems, because it'll make them too mushy. I don't like mushy greens. So usually when I cut greens like this, I put them together, right? I make a stack of them like this. I'll do it in two. So I make a stack. I roll the stack, right? I roll them, and then I slice. And I'm going to slice them very thin, but it's very easy to cut them when you roll them like this, and it makes for a nice piece. If you want, if they're really big leaves, these aren't that big, but I'll do it just to show you. If they're big leaves, while they're still in a roll like that, you can then cut them in half. And it'll make for a really nice bite-sized pieces. See? So again, you just it's easier if you put the big leaves on the bottom, the small leaves in the middle, and just stack them up, roll them, and then cut. And then the rolls are like that, and it's very easy. Just cut them in half. They keep it from getting too big a piece in your cooking. So now I have some nice little vegetables. I also have some onions here. But I will put the onion and my bok choy and the garlic in the frying pan after I've heated the pan, and add some olive oil, and I'll add the greens, and then I'll add the scrambled eggs mixed with a little half and half or milk, organic of course, and I'm good to go. Have a great dinner. I can add a little cheese if I want for flavoring. I have some already grated. And there you go, 2 mystery vegetables that some of you didn't know what they were or how wonderful they were. Now you know how to clean them, how to cut them, how to store them. You see that they last. I hope you enjoyed, I hope you learned something, and we'll talk to you soon.